bourbonblog.com. We're very pleased to have joining us Chef Robert Irvine and also Marat Mamedov. They are co-owners of Boardroom Spirits Distillery in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. How are you all, gentlemen?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good. Tell us about how this all came together, Boardroom Spirits Distillery.
Marat, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So my wife, brother, and I, we started the distillery initially, back in 2014, opened our doors in 2016. We met Robert in an alleyway, and then he came on board. And I'm just joking there. But when we were starting the distillery, it was at the time where craft distilling was kind of up and coming, similar to the wine boom that happened in the 80s and craft beer in the late 90s and 2000s. So we were fortunate enough to meet the right folks, do recipe development over in Hungary, where you can legally distill, and it's tough to do when you're starting a distillery and you can't actually recipe develop. And that really helped build the foundation for the facility that we created, which from the time that we opened our doors in 2016 to current day to day, we've grown from a 3,600 square foot facility to about 25,000 square feet, which constitutes a hospitality space, obviously spirits manufacturing, finished product warehousing, as well as canning and bottling operation. And then, with Robert, we met, I want to say it was 2017, and Robert will talk about this more, where they have their annual fundraising event, a charity event called Beats and Eats in Philadelphia. And we just happened to be one of the sponsors, and, we had a chance to meet. Just a very good organic relationship in terms of, what Robert's done on television, the mission of the foundation, which we'll chat about, as well as, what we do at this distillery and what Robert kind of preaches with, food and some of his products, where it's all about, clean ingredients, no filler, full flavor, things of that nature.
I think I'm going to add on to that a little bit. We have 11 companies, 6,000 employees. The natural progression for us from a food company, a nutrition company, feeding the military, clothing, et cetera, was to round out that circle of influence, especially in the food and beverage space. And what Marat and his family have done, wife and brother, had created a distillery that was along the same lengths as what we do with food, which was great, simple, clean ingredients done correctly. Right, so I can put a plate of food together, knowing that I'm OCD and the ingredients are great, and I do the least possible to it to make it greater. They have the same philosophies, hence our partnership in the distilling business. And it's interesting because when Marat says it was at 3,000 square feet and 26,000 right now, this year will be an expansive growth for us in many directions, not just. Yes, we started with the gin and vodka, which you're trying right now, which are amazing. But there's an awful lot behind that. Canning lines, canning goods that are coming out, different distillations of certain products. And I won't get into them at the moment, but I believe that 24 could be our breakout year in a dramatic way.
And was having, and that's amazing, and they're incredible products, Chef. Was having a distillery, having your own spirit, something you'd always dreamt about, or you'd always wanted to do?
No. There's one thing I've always said. I'm a very unique human being in that we don't put a name on product unless we own the product and the distribution and the facility that creates those. Marat came at a time that was serendipitous because the skill sets that he has and the family and the distillery just aligned with exactly what we do in food and nutrition and clothing, by the way, of tier one product, creating a tier one product and getting ready to, and all we've done over the last 2 or 3 years, I say all, by the way, that's an understatement, is get ready for that next level of growth, right? So bigger still, bigger bottling plant, bigger canning lines or more canning lines. And 24 is, I believe, the year for that growth. We focus primarily on our food and nutrition business the last 10 years that are on autopilot right now. And that's an understatement there, but really focusing on taking the distillery to a whole new level of not only business, but the SKUs of products. And Boardroom has, 50, 60 different products on its own line, right? But, so I see this year being a huge focus for us on the spirit. What is natural food and beverage, of course. And we have, not just because we make it, we have the best vodka, the best gin, the best whatever product we put out. Marat makes sure it is 100% of excellence, and that's why we're partnered. We have the same attention to detail. And if you walk around the distillery, you'll see. It's like being on a TV show. It's immaculate. You could eat your dinner off the floor, and it's ran like the military. So it fits into all of what we do.
That's just some great elements that have come together. And I remember when I first met you, Chef, at South Beach Wine and Food Festival several years ago. You had just started getting this going. I was amazed. I said, Chef Irvine has this distillery, the spirits brand. It's delicious stuff. We're going to try it in a little while, and I think it's a little healthier than some, especially the vodka and the gin. I'm going to put this website up here, boardroomspirits.com. If you're watching and if you're a fan, and if you've already tried some of their products, tell us down below what some of the products you've tried are. And right now I'm beginning to sip the vodka, and we'll do the full tasting in a moment, but something quite special and important that you've done with your foundation, Chef. Tell us about your Chef Robert Irvine Foundation.
The foundation was formed almost 8 years ago to make the lives of first responders and the men and women that wear the cloth foundation better. What does that mean? Wheelchairs, mobile devices, bikes, dogs that not only can smell and see and hear, but can take care of folks. We build houses. We have Breaking Bread for Heroes. So what does that mean? Two times a week somewhere around the world, we're feeding people, whether I'm there or not, whether that be in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Poland, Spain, Germany, Italy, England, it doesn't matter. So everything that we do and all our companies, a portion of those proceeds goes into that foundation to take care of those men and women that wear the cloth and are first responders. For example, feeding firefighters in fire stations. A lot of people don't understand that, our firefighters that go to work every day have to pay for their own food, which to me is horrendous. I don't understand that when they're jumping in and out of buildings, saving lives and property, and yet they have to pay for their own food. So we do a lot of that kind of stuff. And Mobius devices, we have an iBot program that if you're in a wheelchair, this is a wheelchair designed by Dean Kamen, the Segway designer, that picks you up eye level, goes up and down stairs on its own across rough terrain. We have a bike program, bowhead bikes, 20 miles an hour. If you're an amputee or double, triple amputee, you can use this bike. And the idea of these Mobius devices is to get you out of your room. We have a Reuniting Brave program where we put units together. We just come back from Cuba. We just come back from Australia. We came back from Poland, visiting bases. We're about to go to Lithuania and somewhere else this next coming month. So it's really about taking care of those that take care of us. And what the foundation does, thanks to all of our companies, is thrive and take care of people that need help, that are in the military or first responder. We host events at the distillery, which is a fun time. The tasting room there. I think everything that we do collectively as a company or a group of companies, and we just had our big meeting in Phoenix, Arizona, you realize how big your companies become when you have 50 people in a room and 50 people on a screen tuning in from all around the world. But the end, and Marat said it so eloquently there, everything we do is designed around that foundation to help other people.
And some of those things you're telling me, the fact that firefighters have to pay for their own food, things that people don't know, when you first learned these were probably shocking to you.
I was horrified. Like I've been in the military where I was a firefighter when in England many years ago when you would never look it up, but look it up. Green Goddesses. They were old World War II firefighter trucks that I used to have to. We'd save the people, let the buildings burn. That was our mandate at that point. But for these men and women, and you look at 9/11, you look at all the things that happened throughout our country and throughout the world, where our firefighters and first responders decide to just go to other countries and help other people. We know we've had firefighters from all over the United States in Israel just recently. So, we've got to make sure that we take care of those that are taking care of our life on a general day-to-day basis. And I think people forget about that.
I put this up down below so that everyone can see it. Robert Irvine Foundation.org. I would assume if you're someone that could either benefit or help benefit the foundation, that's where you would go, right?
Yes. Two weeks ago in Pennsylvania, a detective was shot. Life in danger. He survived, by the way. But our first call, we were the first people to call and say, okay, what does the family need? How do we take care of that? With Governor Josh Shapiro, who is such an amazing human being. Forget Democratic parties, Republican parties. He's a great governor, but even a better human being. So that's what the foundation does: reaches out and touches people in the real world. And our partnership. And look, you buy spirits, you have fun, but you're also doing good at the same time.
That's right. And let's talk about how it does, how all this does come together. I love the fact that you're doing events there, Marat. They're at the distillery to help the foundation. You do I would imagine you do several of those a year.
Oh yeah, we do, and have a lot more planned this year. One of the folks from the foundation lives right down the road, so we actually had a chat the other day of how we can do more together. Each one of our bottles has a little necker. There's the camera. It's actually Robert's head photoshopped on my body, but it gives some details about all the different elements, and we plan on doing a whole lot more. And I think that's the very genuine piece of it is the because I'm sure people all the time are like, all right, great, another celebrity tequila brand or another blah 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 brand, but this one has a solid foundation to stand on because the foundation has been around way longer than the spirits brand which is only a couple of years young right now.
Right. So again, foundation's been around for 8 years. You all have been doing this for several with the spirits. And why don't we this is also important. And again, we want everyone watching to check to go to the website to see how they can help, to spread the word. Take a moment and like this and share this, because what Marat and Robert have done and the whole team there is just so incredible. And I'm just so happy to be talking with them today. Let's dive in, first of all, to just try this Irvine's Precision Distilled Vodka. I think the vodka is a perfect place to start. And again, your spirits, describe, as we're beginning to sip this here, how they support the foundation.
Well, it's really easy. Every time you buy one of Irvine products, and we have 212 products across food and nutrition and clothing and alcohol. But every time you go to a store and you buy that alcohol, a portion of that proceeds at the end of the year gets directly given to the foundation. So we can actually do that work. The same with food, the same with everything else we do. But the interesting thing about, and I'll let Marat get into the spirits in a second, but the interesting thing about these spirits are, number one, the corn, the vodkas. If you've tasted the vodka, which I just saw you there, they're smelling and swirling and whatnot, but you can actually taste it's a little sweeter than most.
Right.
If we were to put a label on that, there'll be a couple of ingredients, 3 ingredients. It's very clean, very simple. When we say chef curated, the gin, look, you'll taste that in a minute, but I always tell people, and I'll be in Michigan tomorrow all day tasting for the next couple of days. When I tell people, that don't like gin, I'm like, well, you got to try this gin because A, B, and C. There's 13 botanicals in there: the elderflower, the blackberry, the Darjeeling tea, the cinnamon, and we Marat and I specifically picked the ingredients to go into that blend to make sure that it's perfect. And chef curated, yes, it's recipes. It's what I do for a living. That's what makes it a difference. It's not Robert Irvine putting his name on a bottle of something.
Right. I do drink a lot of great whiskey, right? And I do judge some spirit competitions. Sometimes I will be on vodka panels. So I've tried a lot of different vodkas side by side. This is a really clean, crisp, some nice creaminess, even some citrus. This isn't just your standard vodka. There's some real flavor behind this. How did you get this vodka tasting so unique? It is a very unique vodka.
For us, it's good, clean ingredients, right? If you want to make a simple meal or a great meal, you don't need a whole lot. You just need, great quality produce. And we start with a really good, non-GMO corn base to make the vodka. Grown in the Midwest, which, to Robert's point and your point as well, Tom, gives it that nice kind of light body, but good flavor profile, so that if you are a whiskey drinker, the corn is a good natural kind of base, because it does give that sweetness, right? Precision distilled, if you're a chef and you're cooking, you want to be good with your technique and, following your recipe to make a memorable meal. And, with our facility and our still and, our processes are automated. So that allows us to run, more consistent products off the still and a safer operation, but also, be very tight in our processes and not rely on, I know handmade and handcrafted is a big part of, spirits marketing, but we don't want to rely on how hungover our distiller is from the night before to make sure that our product's consistent going batch to batch. And then lastly,
when you say that, and I'm jumping in here because I feel that hand produced, I think it's all a crock of garbage, right? Because they don't do it. They've never done it. It's a marketing ploy. It's a money ploy. And I could name, and you can name 1,000 people that put that on their labels or use it in their thing. I get upset with that. And when people ask me that, I'm very vocal about that.
Sure.
Because I know what we do and the care we take. And when you get to 300, 400,000, 500,000 cases, sorry, you're not doing that. I don't care who you are.
It's big.
Where you are.
Right.
So it may start off with good intentions, but it doesn't ever get there. So when you get to that point, you should drop that. I'm not going to call the brands out, but there are a dozen brands out there that say, we're hand distilled with this, and yet the volume doesn't allow that. Maybe they started that way 20, 25 years ago, but it's not anymore. So don't say it is. And if that was in a restaurant and we put that on a menu and somebody challenged that, you would lose in a court of law. It's like me saying Kobe beef. This is real Kobe beef and not having a certificate of birth with its nose print on it, right? You can sue me. Well, I wish we could do that in the spirit world, because that's not what's happening. I stand by everything that we make, and I stand by what Marat does in the distillery, because that's real. And if you go to our distillery, you'll see it. It's open. It's open for people to come to see. It's open for them to have their parties. It's open to see the distillery. It's open to, the amount of people I take there myself just to show how good it is. And I make a living of telling people how bad their food is, how bad their restaurant are. But not only restaurants. I'm talking airline. I'm talking TV stations. I'm talking all different types of business, retail business, where I go in and look at their systems. I'm a systems person.
Right.
I look at systems and why they break, and Marat just said it. Our systems are so set in place, they're automated. They never change. They don't break. They don't mix the wrong ingredients, etc. We know exactly whether you do one at 9 o'clock in the morning or one at 9 o'clock at night. It's the same bottle of alcohol that you're going to get.
And I love that you're saying this, because the same thing you've seen Chef Irvine do on TV with restaurants, you've applied that same philosophy to distillery. And a lot of us maybe didn't know you do consult other businesses with that same approach.
I consult some of the biggest companies in the world, in the Fortune 500, on their systems and procedures in places. And that could be clothing, it could be fuel, it could be trucking, it could be frozen food, it could be airlines, it could be AI, it could be robotics, it can be, you name it, I'm there. It's the same, because the same systems apply, right? This is how you do something, and this is only one way to do it, and this is how you sell it. I teach sales teams how to actually sell their product instead of trying to sell something that nobody wants. And Marat is the genius, and I say genius, and I don't want his head getting big there, but he is a genius in creating You know, what's the next thing? What's coming next? Look, we have an issue across our military. We have an issue in our society. We don't have the people that we used to have. Bartenders are not, you know, the bartenders they used to be 10 years ago, right? Just because I put you behind a bar and ask you to make a drink doesn't mean you're a great bartender or a great chef or a great truck driver. Now we're looking into that space where, and Marat, you can talk more about this, but where we're giving you the option for these ready to drink spirits or blends to say, okay, you don't need a 30 an hour bartender, and we're going to make it easier for you and more effective, cost effective.
Sure.
And use the labor where you really can use the labor, which is what we're into now. I mean, you want to talk about that?
I think the one avenue that we're starting to go towards is I think it's going to start, you know, going past the taboo phase of where it used to be, where now it's not the same as, you know, pulling the sour mix, things of that nature, is that ready to serve category. And,
yes,
you know, you're going to see some of the bigger brands making an investment, and we're going to have, you know, this first line hitting Pennsylvania state stores and hopefully rolling out to other markets where it's a full strength, 18% alcohol cocktail, ready to, you know, drink or shake it, strain it. You're going to get that nice head of foam for the espresso martini because it's made with real coffee. It's not, you know, 4 different coffee extracts that come together to create the flavor profile. It's the real thing. And we work in, obviously we'll send you samples of this as well. But one of our best sellers, and we're excited about pushing, you know, this is a single serve version, but we also have the bottled versions where it's, you know, we want to make the life of the restaurant manager, the bar manager, the beverage manager, the bartender, you know, easier, where as a customer too, more importantly, you know, you're getting the same consistent experience instead of someone maybe over pouring or, you know, whatever the case may be. So you're getting the same consistent product because it's coming from a same consistent base.
The way the salaries are going right now, a cook gets $30 an hour, whether he can cook or not. That's just the way it is, right? And we have to be mindful of having the amount of people we need to run a business. And if I have to hire somebody at $37 an hour to be a bartender, you know, they better be able to put a lot of drinks out, right, for me to make money. So at the end of the day, it's consistency, it's quality, and it's using the labor where it's used to and not wasting that labor. And I think that's where, and it's coming in the food category, it's coming in the, and you can see it at airports, you can see it at doctor's offices now. You can see it when you take blood. There are no receptionists anymore. You go in, you use a machine that does this. And I'm not saying that drinks will ever be a machine, but this category of ready for you to drink, maybe shake it up, add some ice and pour it and have the same experience in seconds as opposed to a 5-minute interaction or watching a scientist do it.
I think that's all so important. I mean, what you all are both saying is so important, and things that we hear talked about, but just to hear you all talking about them is so important. I'm going to pour some of the American Dry Gin next, Irvine's American Dry Gin, and I should probably also ask, as I'm pouring this, so many amazing ingredients. Whether it's an ingredient in this gin or just one that you like to always have near you, Chef. What's an ingredient that you never want to be without, no matter where you're traveling? Is there one or two that you always like to have?
Well, it's interesting because tea, I'm English, number one. And they always say to me, so I drink probably 26 to 30 cups of tea a day.
That's a lot, yeah.
So for me, if I'm doing television or traveling, it doesn't matter what, I'm doing the same thing. So for me, tea, in this case, it's Darjeeling tea. With the blackberry and the elderflower, the cinnamon, which we went to Sri Lanka to get real cinnamon, not the cinnamon we use here in America, which is terrible. So I think all them ingredients that are in there, the 13 ingredients, are what I would use in the kitchen. I don't think there's anything that I'm ever without. But one thing I despise literally is cinnamon. I hate it, except the cinnamon we use that is real dried cinnamon from the tree. And people think cinnamon, and it's interesting. I'll give you a little bit of history that you probably don't know, but if you do, then I'll be corrected. But you know, where were the first millionaires made in the United States of America?
I'm not sure.
Salem, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And what were they made with? Peppercorns and cinnamon. Cinnamon was transported. If you go into Salem, you look above street level, you see houses with 2 chimneys. That signifies there's a tunnel that goes into another tunnel that heads to the port. And the millionaires in this country were made in Salem. Forget the witches. We only hung 100 witches, but we made more millionaires through peppercorns and cinnamon because the traders used to bring it in. And then the excise or the tax house used to be at the end of the pier. They literally dug tunnels to bypass the tax houses in Salem, and you could sell it with no tax.
But you really, it's really interesting. But on cinnamon, you really only like it in gin. Is that right?
The cinnamon is in that gin is amazing.
It really is. I mean, you can tell it's intricate. It has layers. The whole gin just comes together beautifully, and it's soft. How do you do that, Marat? How do you make that magic happen?
But it's a balance, and that goes back to the chef curator. Obviously, creating gin, you can make gin every day for the rest of your life and not exhaust all the possibilities that are possible, because obviously juniper is the start of the show with coriander and then all the other ingredients. And for us, we wanted to make something that wasn't a juniper bomb, and as we like to call it, the non-gin drinkers gin. So that vodka base that you started with, and go back to the chef curated angle, gives that nice blank palate with a touch of sweetness that we can then layer flavor in. And Robert, I'm going to correct you on one thing. It's elderberry and black currant that we put in there to give those jammy notes.
But I said elderberry.
Close. It's all right.
Didn't I?
Flower berry, same thing. Whatever. Either way.
Hey, it's delicious no matter what.
It's fine.
I thought I said elderberry.
It's okay. But the idea with the cinnamon, though, and you're going to get that on your back palate there, Tom, is the Darjeeling tea gives you those tannic notes. And then the baking spice from the cinnamon plays nicely with the ginger. So you get this nice balance of flavors. And then jasmine gives it a nice top note. So
but you have to explain the ginger, because that's a different ginger also.
We've used a bunch of different gingers and a couple other products that we do that we layer in this. We started with Chinese ginger, then moved into Costa Rican ginger, which is really good. But now we bring in premium Brazilian ginger, which gives a nice fruitiness, but also a balanced spice that doesn't overwhelm the palate. So it's layering the right flavors, and that's the chef curated angle. And then ultimately, for the chef curated piece is, while we have great ingredients, we have a tight process. The third element of the brand is the lifestyle piece. And that's really, we've got the great product. Now let's make great cocktails that pair with food, because we talked about this previously. Everyone talks about wine and food and beer and food because they've been around for thousands of years. But now we're at a point where, cocktail culture is only a couple hundred years old and has significantly more opportunity to be paired with food than beer and wine.
Robert mentioned it, but I'm enjoying, a couple sips of this. You mentioned you do 26 to 30 cups of tea a day. Tell us about that. What kind of tea? And I
only drink one kind of tea.
Yes.
And Americans are the worst at this. So Americans think that Earl Grey and everything else is a classic black tea. It's not. The only classic black tea is English breakfast tea. That is the only classic tea there is. Everything else is a variation of that tea, just like we can make a variation of gin, right?
Right.
So I only ever drink throughout the day English breakfast tea because it's clean and it's crisp. I don't need to add anything to it.
Hey, I never get to that many sips of bourbon a day, but I usually do a couple. And one that I'm going to do, one of the whiskeys, the bourbon. We're going to do the bourbon next, Northbound straight bourbon. And let's hear.
I love that one.
This by the way, this bourbon, this is really, really nice. What do we have here?
So that's our Northbound bourbon. We actually, if you're in the Distillery area, in a town called Souderton, we have a restaurant called Northbound with really fantastic partners, fresh food menu. So we created that line for it. We do source it from MGP, and then we blend the barrels together and finish it off. But it's a really nice, well-priced everyday bourbon, like our everyday gin. But no, it's got those nice sweet notes of corn, your kind of traditional mash bill, about 21% rye. So you're going to get that big, fruity kind of corn flavor, but it's not overly grainy. The balance there is with the tannins, but it's still got a rich mouthfeel where it doesn't dry out your palate. So I really enjoy that bourbon. For me, if I'm going to drink bourbon neat or, a big old ice cube, I prefer the bourbon, whereas some of the other products like rye, I like in cocktail personally.
Great caramels, some nice vanillas. I mean, this has everything you'd want on a really just incredible straight bourbon. And I'm putting the website up once again, boardroomspirits.com, so you can know where to find this. You all are in how many states with your products? How many are you in with all of your
So
products?
Irvine's is our national brand. That's
Right.
where you're going to find it the most. And,
Right.
Michigan, New Hampshire, Maine, Pennsylvania, Army and Air Force exchanges and Navy exchanges, as
Right.
well as the state of Florida and Maryland. The northbound is specifically to the Pennsylvania area. So
Right. Okay, another rapid fire quick question for you all that I think might be fun just to know. Growing up in Britain, Chef, first time you ever had an American whiskey or a bourbon? Do you remember what that was and what you were doing?
My God, I was 11 years old when I started drinking in England. My dad caught me in a pub. So I used to drink anything that was wet and cold. And that's a true story. My first bourbon was actually here in America when I joined the Navy at 15 and a half years old. I was at Norfolk Naval Station where we were visiting, and I had adopted a family, or a family had adopted me as a sailor from that ship for the week. And I had it. Don't ask me what it was, because I can't remember back that far. But that was my first bourbon, and we sat there and drank. Me and the dad of the family that adopted me drank, I think, 3 or 4 bottles of that during my week, and I was forever changed. But so I think the brown spirits have kind of grown on me over the years. And Marat, I'll tell you, that brand, and you just tried it, is pretty amazing, considering what we do with it to make it that good. So yeah, that was my first experience. My last one was in Sydney, Australia, on New Year's Eve. Actually,
Had a little bourbon.
yes,
In Sydney.
I saw the fireworks on the bridge on New Year's Eve with bourbon.
That is a good way to celebrate. I was having a little bit on New Year's Eve myself. Your first one, Marat? What? Any?
Was my last one for a while after that, but it was when you're younger, you're doing like the flavored stuff. So it took a while to really gain an appreciation for the product.
Right.
And obviously, as we work with the ingredients, you learn to understand them. I think the same goes back to like cooking. Like when you try something, you're like, oh, this is terrible, but then your palate evolves. I think it changes like every 7 years, your palate changes. But no, I mean, nowadays, honestly, I think if you're looking at like Irish whiskey, Scotch, bourbon, Japanese.
He didn't ask that. He said, "What was your first one?"
Yeah. I don't remember what I did last week.
Stop skirting the question.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're going back to like,
make sure you don't.
Too young of an age.
It's okay.
But
look, I'm right there. I grew up on the border of Indiana and Kentucky, so we had it all over the place. I'll tell you, the category that's really growing. I know there's some single malt American whiskey in this. This is Chairman's American whiskey, a limited release. This is an amazing blend. We talked a little while back, Marat, about what's in this. There's a little bit of barley, a little bit of everything in this one, right?
Yeah, so that's our very first kind of distillery edition release. It's been 6 years in the making now, from the time that it sat in barrels to stainless to let all the flavors marry together in the right blend. So to your point, malted barley that gives it the light citrusy fruity notes. So if you're traveling around the world, think of it like a Speyside Scotch meets Irish, where it's light bodied and characteristic. We've got a little bit of locally grown in this area, warthog wheat, heirloom wheat, which gives it that little bit of sweetness and balance. And then we add a little bit of spice with the rye. And then a portion of that product is actually finished in a cognac barrel. So we're bringing in the fruit notes into the product. So it's a very complex, very bold, very unique flavor profile.
I love this one. I get that cognac. It's very elegant. It has those deeper earth tones, some beautiful spices that just really come up through this one. Again, this is one of these distillery onlys, right? Can you only get it at the distillery, or is it?
Correct. While it lasts. And, for a product like that, where you're balancing the tannins of the oak with you're probably going to pick up a little bit of chocolate as you open it up with water. You know, and we hearken this a little back to making brandy. You know, if you look at a big brand like Bullet, I always like to use that example. You know, it takes them about a month or so to proof from barrel strength to bottle strength, because you can't just dump a whole bunch of water into alcohol to get it down to proof, because, you know, it creates an exothermic reaction and heats up the alcohol. It kind of bruises it. That's why, you know, people should be stirring their martinis versus shaking them, right? Same with Manhattans. So you have to be, alcohol is very dramatic in that regard, where you have to go low and slow with the proofing process, have the right amount of oxygen, homogenization to get to the flavor profile. And for us, it was, you know, multiple months of sitting in stainless before we were ready to put it in a bottle.
It took some time to really bring it together. I want to also remind everyone, check out boardroomspirits.com to learn about these spirits. At some point, we're going to get out there, Marat, Chef Irvine, and do an event with you all. And again, for anyone going that direction toward Lansdale, Pennsylvania, visit the distillery. Also, check out Robert Irvine Foundation.org. Gentlemen, it's really been a pleasure. It's awesome to have you both in the spirit space. It really means a lot. Everything you're doing for the foundation, for our servicemen and women, for the first responders. Cheers to you both. I'll leave this website one more time for everyone to check out. And thanks for joining us on bourbonblog.com.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chef and Marat.